Welcome back everybody, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. This week I bring a video for the beginners, and that is how to set up a complete skateboard on 2021, which is no different than any other year because it hasn't changed in the last 50 years. Maybe one day it will. I don't want to waste your time, so I'm going to get right to it. There are 6 components that are needed in order to build a complete skateboard. You're going to need a sheet of grip tape. And in my case, I use mob grip, which is perforated. I think nowadays any quality grip tape is going to be perforated. You're going to need that in order to avoid getting bubbles in your grip tape, because believe me, when you get bubbles in your grip tape, it sucks. You're going to need a skateboard, of course. Make sure there's no grip installed. And I know it sounds silly if I say that, but believe me, I've seen people try to put grip on top of grip. Don't do that. You're going to need a set of skateboard hardware. You're gonna need a pair of trucks. You're gonna need a set of bearings, which is basically 8 bearings. And you're gonna need a set of wheels. There are other components like riser pads and rails, things like that are optional. So I'm not gonna include those in this video because you do not need those in order to build your basic skateboard. Now, what I just showed you, that's what you do need to build a complete skateboard. Now for the installation, I would highly recommend you getting a skate tool. These are specifically designed for skateboards, and it'll come with each one of the necessary tools all in one. These are available at every single skate shop. You can buy these online. They're very affordable, and it's probably the best thing a skateboarder can buy. But if you don't have one, don't worry, because you can use your everyday wrenches. Everybody's got them, and you would just need these measurements. You would need the 1.5 inch for your wheels, 9/16 for your trucks, and you would need 3/8 for your hardware. You would also need a screwdriver, a Phillips head, or an Allen key, depending on what your hardware is set up to be. And you will need a knife or a razor. If you're a young person, make sure you have the supervision of an adult. Don't be cutting yourself, not on my watch. So first I will get the skateboard right off the wrapping plastic, and I will remove any stickers that come on it. I know they're warnings, they're important, read them, but then get rid of them. Now there are a million ways, infinite ways to set up your grip tape, and that will just depend on your personality and what you like. I'm just gonna show you today the basic single sheet grip tape setup. So basically what you wanna do first, making sure that your board is clean and free of debris. You're gonna rip the grip tape off the backing. Hope you guys can see that. And you're gonna keep this around, and I'll show you why later. So basically what you're gonna do, and this is why the perforated grip tape becomes very handy. This really sped up the gripping process from what people used to do back in the 80s and 90s, is that you're going to basically make sure that you're covering all sides of the board. You can actually use your, see how I have my fingers like this? I use that to kind of measure, see where the board is. You do that, make sure you're covering all sides of the board, and you'll stick the grip tape to the very tippy toe of the nose and the very back, like right around there. Don't put any pressure yet. You just make sure that it's all right under, and then you can start putting pressure from the middle out. And maybe you can lift up. You basically put in pressure, trying to avoid any bubbles, which you shouldn't really worry about because you have a perforated grip tape. So this already is coming out very good. So what I can see here, I don't see any bubbles whatsoever. If you do see bubbles, just make sure you put some pressure on them. They should go away without a problem. So now that the grip tape is where I want it to be, I'm gonna use the same paper that the grip tape came on, glossy side down, to give it a little bit of extra pressure and try to get rid of any bubbles that might have been left behind. All right, and that way when you do this, you're not hurting your hand. You can give it more pressure without hurting your hand. You don't have to do this too much. Just do it enough to where you're comfortable. All right, so what I'm gonna do next is mark the grip tape. So you can use any tool that you want. You can use a screwdriver. A skate tool will also have a little section that you can use. I prefer to use a screwdriver because I don't like to mark it too much. And what you're going to do is you're going to gently mark the board. See, I'm already making mistakes. And that's about as much as I do. And now comes the fun part. This part is pretty relaxing when you do it correctly and very satisfying at the end, and it is to cut the grip tape. So what are you going to do? You got to take a knife that has to be very sharp in order to make it easier for you. So what I do is I come in from underneath and I cut from underneath up in one steady motion. You got to be careful with your fingers. I got it what I wanted it to be. And do one clean cut. And you kind of follow it around. So the trick to this is that you're not completely up, you're kind of in an angle. You kind of give it an angle a little bit towards you, and that makes it easier to cut. So like you noticed, you can flip the board over to make it more comfortable to you. Obviously, you don't want to have a knife on your side right over here. You want to kind of have it on the outside. And there you go. Now the satisfying part. Ah, yes. I really love having a board that has a yellow upper layer because it just makes it pop so much. So this is great. So what I do next is I fold my remaining grip tape. I do a little cut over here. I always keep these because they come in handy later on. So I have a whole drawer full of grip tape clippings. So what I do, and this is very common for other people to do too, I do not mess with my grip itself. I want it to be as grippy as possible. But what I do is that I grip here on the edges real quick. So you're kind of curing it, if you will. All right, cover your ears. All right, so there you go. Boom. Now, that wasn't necessary. A lot of people do it. A lot of people don't. That's just the way I do it. So now we have a beautifully gripped board. So the next step is to get the hardware ready for the trucks. Now, there are different ways of doing this. You can use the same hardware and go from underneath and poke the hole from underneath, because you're going to need to see those holes on top. Or the way I like to do it is I find this very thin screwdriver, and I just poke the holes from underneath. That part you can do it real quickly. Always making sure that you're not poking this against your body. And then I go from on top and give it a little extra love. And now your holes are ready for the hardware. So now that your hardware is ready, it's time to put on the trucks. So on the trucks, here's a pro tip, if you will. You don't have to necessarily do it if they're brand new trucks. Like these are brand new trucks. I haven't had brand new trucks in ages. But what I'd like to do is that I like to tag them for the front truck and the back truck. That way later on, when you're switching boards, you always will know which truck is the front truck and which truck is the back truck. Believe me, that matters a lot. And the other tip that is not a pro tip, is actually a very beginner tip, is that you want your trucks to be facing each other. You want the bushings to be facing each other. That's how the trucks should go. You do not want trucks to be facing this way. You don't want trucks to be facing this way. Always bushings in. Get it? I'm gonna put one here. All right, so now that my hardware is in place, it's time for me to tighten them up. This is where I use my skate tool and a screwdriver. So the way I like to do it is I go from corner to corner. I do one on top, I do one in the opposite corner, and then I do it like that. I don't know if that matters or not, but that's the way I've been doing it for years. You can also do this with a drill, but I would suggest you're very careful. You don't want to over tighten the truck. You don't want to get the screw way too far onto the board and then perhaps ruining the board. All right, now that I explained it, this is very basic, so I'm just gonna cut onto the next part. All right, so now that my trucks are tight in place, it's time to install the bearings and the wheels. So what you're gonna do is basically gonna remove the nut from one of your axles, like so. And you're gonna notice that your trucks, on each axle, they have two little washers. So what you're gonna wanna do is one of these washers will go here at the bottom, and then the other washer will go on top of the wheel in between the wheel and the nut. Now when you get your bearings, they have a set of bearings from which you're gonna have to separate them by pairs. So you're gonna have two bearings per wheel. Now sometimes they come with this spacer. If your bearings do not come with a spacer, then don't worry about it. They will work just as well. Mine just happened to have the spacer, and I use this spacer. So this is the way I'm going to show you how to install. So the way that I install my bearings, and you're going to need a little bit of muscle, is I put one bearing down. I put my spacer. Remember, if yours doesn't have it, then skip that part. And you're going to put your other bearing on top, right? Just like so. Then you're going to grab your wheel, and you're going to very carefully put some pressure on it. It'll go all the way down, or not all the way down, but it'll get the first bearing in. Then you flip it around and you do another push. So now technically this wheel is good to go, right? So all you would have to do in this case is put your washer back on, and then your nut back on. And then when you put your nut back on and you tighten it, what I like to do is that I like to tighten it until I feel some pressure from the bearing, like so, and then I release. I bring it back a little bit, because what you want, some game. You want a little bit of play. You hear that? Some people might even want more. Like that. That's what you want. You don't want it to be completely fully tight. You still want it to be able to spin freely. Now there are a couple of ways you can do this. You can do what I just did on each and every one of the axles, or like I prefer to do, I use one axle to get all my wheels set up with the bearings, and then I'll go around and install them. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that very quickly, and we'll be right back. So now I did all my four wheels. This one's gonna have to stay here. Put my washer in, put the nut back on, tighten it until I feel resistance, like that. And then I come back and check. I like that. Now notice something, and this is very, very optional. This is just like kind of each skater have their own thing. I like to put my wheels with the graphics facing in. I want to have that blank wheel facing out. That's just the way I like it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to all four wheels, and we'll be right back. So now, like you saw, I just installed my wheels, and that's it. You're done. So there you have it. You just put a skateboard together. You see how easy that was? I guess I'm gonna say I'm sorry that I don't have like the fancy studios or the fancy equipment or the multi-camera. I'm just a dude and a camera, and I hope that I was clear enough so you guys can understand. A couple of notes that I don't know if I mentioned to you guys. One of them is when you're tightening your hardware, make sure that it is flush with the board. You don't want it to be poking out, but at the same time, you don't want to go in too deep into the board. So yeah, make sure you're nice and flush. Something else, like I don't know if you notice here, this is very, very optional, and it goes person by person. I had this color hardware laying around, so I decided to add a little bit of color to my board. I put them all here in the front and then have black here at the bottom. Not only is this a little, you know, a little bit of, hey man, a little bit of fun, a little bit of relax, but it also helps me differentiate the nose from the tail. So those are little things that you can do to personalize your board. I guess you know what I'm trying to say. Just have fun with it. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of this video. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully you got your board all set up and together. If you have any more questions about setting up a board, please leave them in the comment. I try to answer every single one of you. I hope you guys go and shred, because that's all you got left to do now. Remember to set up your own skateboards. Remember to shred the gnar. But most importantly, remember to stay young. Peace out. We'll see you in the next one.